the title Good Grief started with the materials I'm using for the show. So if you see all of the objects that are in the show, they are found objects from the street, and they're often completely worn out, dirty, forgotten, close to being dead as objects. They are past their prime. So this is true almost with all my exhibitions, is I take these objects that are fallen, like this one, which is the old wicker chair to sit in, and I give them a second life as a sculpture, and that's done by adding different materials and making them beautiful again. So to me, Good Grief was, there's an empathy or a grieving that I have for these objects, and then I am there to reawaken them. So it's through the grief it becomes good again. But it's not quite so literal. The Good Grief, I like that expression, good grief, and I thought somehow it worked with the show. And so it's about moving through from one state to the next, from going from something, a tragedy, into something more positive. Is it a criticism towards consumption? Part of it is yes, but that is the second part. The first part is the sense of discovery and interest in how we use things and the beauty of things that are worn out. I think that's always true for me. Is some of the most beautiful things are stripped down of, when something is very worn out, it gets down to its essence in a way. You start to see the structure within it, and there's something beautiful about, ruins here in Athens, or even just a worn out t-shirt, how the colors become beautiful in their fadedness. But then, there is a political side to the work, but again, that's secondary, which is that people use things and throw them away too often, and I think it's important to look carefully and not be so kind of blind to the subtle nature of the world, and to just treat things with a little more care. Aesthetics on a hopefully deeper level, like an idea of, for this show, I want this show to be aesthetically very beautiful. When you come in, there's not too much stuff. Everything is kind of quiet, and you have to look carefully to really discover the work. And I want to give that experience to people, this kind of quiet, somewhat contemplative, beautiful show. But at the same time, there is the political part, which is where you can say you've had this beautiful experience with all this stuff, and then maybe you think about it for a minute and you say, oh, this is kind of just junk. To start with, it's an old curtain, or it's an old hula hoop, or it's a very ordinary thing. So to have this experience come out of things that are so ordinary, I think is part of the charm of the work. I feel any artist wants to expand the territory of art, finding new ground in which to work, to expand the freedom of what is allowed in artwork. This work aims to allow the objects to speak more on their own, outside of the history of art. So I try to keep them in the real world. For example, each work, the curtain behind me, it doesn't necessarily it's not turning a curtain into a dinosaur. It's not a kind of assemblage where I take different objects and turn them into something else. Instead, I try to keep the curtain as a curtain, but to make it ecstatic. Almost, in a way, an artifact. It's simultaneously an artwork, but also a mummification of the curtain to preserve it forever in all its wondrous glory. And so I think, in that respect, that is, I guess the way I think about it is different from some of my historical lineage. But on the whole, I don't think that, again, it's not quite in my agenda to abandon history as much as it's maybe a byproduct of my intention.